Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I am Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are doing the Houston Texans 7-round mock draft. We did a full mock draft, all 255 or 256 picks. I'm blanking on it right now. And today we're going to be breaking down all of the Houston Texans picks. But before we do that, be sure to like, subscribe, and also ring the bell to get notified when future Texans mock drafts come out. We've already done a 3-round mock draft for the Texans. We also have other 3-round and 7-round mock draft series plans leading up to the 2024 NFL draft. So be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified whenever new Texas mock drafts come out. Quickly, just to orient you a little bit on the screen that you're looking at here. Obviously, the name in bold, that is the Texas selection. We're going to get to him in a second. At the very top, you can see what round it's in. We also wanted to provide some context on what players were off the board and were still available at the time the Texans selected, and some other potential options as well, where those guys were selected. So end up going with Byron Murphy here as well. Obviously with Will Anderson and Jonathan Grenard, I'm pretty sure his name, they had a phenomenal season last year. So there's an area maybe they can improve a little bit, might be on the defensive interior. I think go and get a guy like Byron Murphy. He can help out in the pass game a lot, in the pass pressure, but also in the run game as well. Had a very good season and career overall at Texas. So I think he's going to come in, stay in the state. I think he's going to like that, not too far from Austin. And I think he's going to really beef up that offensive line. He's going to beat up the offensive line, the opposing offensive lines, and beef up that defensive line. And just give more opportunities, I think, for Will Anderson just to have his one-on-one matchups, because he was just an absolute stud. It's going to then take a little bit of pressure then, too, off the linebacker core and the secondary core as well, who is improving a lot, who we will also speak to here in a little bit. But Derek Stingley Jr. had a good second year. They'll address corner here in a little bit. I think this position right here, and if you can have a good, solid defensive line, we've seen that with a lot of teams. If you can have a good front seven, it can make up for some pretty weak secondaries overall, just because it's constant pressure being provided. I think if Texans are able to do that, especially in this division, I think that they have a good opportunity to repeat as AFC South division leaders.
Yeah, and to me, I think you found your quarterback. I think you have a good wide receiver room. This run game actually came on pretty strong. This defense had good pass pressure and played well in the secondary. But I think when push came to shove, I think they just didn't quite have the supporting cast and like kind of the playmakers in that area. And to me, that is where Byron Murphy comes in. I think he's the most well-rounded defensive tackle in this class. He gets after the passer well. He's good against the run. And I think you put him in between two top-tier pass rushers in the NFL in Jonathan Grenard, who is a free agent. So that will kind of depend a little bit, I guess. That could change in the future. But you put him in between Will Anderson and Jonathan Grenard if he comes back. I think that you're setting him up for success there. And I really like that fit. I could also see them going with one of the right tackles, J.C. Latham, Amarius Mims, or potentially adding to the secondary with Cameron Kitchens, or my probably second, like 1B option in this mock draft would be to add that Z receiver. You have your Nico Collins, your true X. You have Tank Dell. He's going to be your separator and your space creator in the slot, right? And then I think on the other side of the line, that's where you have your Z. And to me, Troy Franklin would thrive in that spot. Traditionally, your Z is going to get less press man reps simply because the Z is going to line up in the backfield. He's not going to be right on the line of scrimmage, so it's going to be really hard to press a guy playing that role. And to me, that's exactly what Troy Franklin needs. He needs to be in a position where he can utilize his speed. And I think if you put him in an offense with Tank Dell, that would just be a ridiculous amount of speed on the field. So I also like Ladd McConkey for that role if that's their cup of tea. Both really solid receivers, just depends on what flavor you like. So let's go ahead and move on to their second round pick, where we actually do address a wide receiver who can play that Z role. He's going to be a little bit bigger than some of those guys, but still has a very similar speed and profile. And that's going to be Tez Walker out of UNC. Played really well in a lot of different games for them. He had some eligibility issues, so he only played in 7 or 8 games for the Tar Heels in 2023. But in those games, he was extremely efficient, amassing a little over 50 catches for about 650 yards and I think 6 or 7 touchdowns. And to me, he can also be a guy to play that Z role. He didn't perform well at the Senior Bowl because I don't think they did a great job of putting him in situations that really allowed him to use his skill set. And he has really good straight line speed. He stacks DBs really well, but he does struggle in those man coverage reps. So I think for the first year or two that he's in the NFL, if he can't come in and play a Z receiver or kind of be a accent piece to an offense, where I think Nico Collins and Tank Dell are going to be the main focal points of that offense, but he can come in and be your 50 catch, 650 yard guy for the first couple seasons. I think he could definitely develop into something special in an offense like that, especially with a quarterback like CJ Stroud, who's playing at such a high level his rookie year. So I really like what he brings to the table.
And I know a lot of people are going to be saying he didn't have a great Senior Bowl, and it wasn't the best showing, so that's why I think he fell a little bit. And there's a couple other receivers, like we even had Roman Wilson bump up ahead of him. But I also think, too, especially for receivers, that's probably the hardest, coming into an exhibition game like that and have very little reps overall.
Yeah.
It's not even a consistent playing time. So I give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt there. I think if you get him some good reps with a great throw like CJ Stroud, and also, too, you have guys like Tank Dell and then Nico Collins on the other side, who's going to be taking their fair share of attention from the defensive side of the ball. I think that he's set up, he's in a system to succeed. So I think that it could take some time, like his rookie year, but by the second half of his rookie year, with some rhythm, with some reps, with CJ Stroud, I think that he could explode. I just because of how much attention Tank Dell's going to bring and how much attention Nico Collins is going to bring as well. I think here there's also kind of a sneaky little spot for a running back as well. We are going to address that a little bit later. But one of the things too, Dameon Pierce has been in and out of the lineup, but then the emergence of Devin Singletary, he actually had a pretty good second half of the season as well, but he's going to be a free agent. How are they going to want to pay him, or are they going to want to go and get a little bit more well-rounded running back who's younger and cheaper, probably than what Devin Singletary will be asking for, just with the market of the running back. So just a little interesting thought here if they don't want to go with the wide receiver.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the third round as well. So we mentioned they're going to address the cornerback position, have them go with Kyrie Jackson here from Oregon. I really like this guy, nice big receiver, kind of can go across from Derek Stingley Jr., help out with that outside. And at this point in the draft, I was just looking at it. Was there anybody else really that we could go look at? Maybe Cade Stover, I think, if they want to go and get another tight end. But I think they're just going to be a best player available mode here. As I mentioned, there are some other running backs, like Trey Benson was taking a couple picks later. Maybe they want to go there. But I think they might be a little bit more defensive focused. Actually, I take that. I think they're going to be pretty overall well balanced in this draft. But I think with favoring to just improving that defense just a little bit more.
Yeah, and Kyrie Jackson, to me, he's a matchup piece for the big outside wide receivers. He's going to want to play aggressive. I think you look at what DeMeco Ryans likes to do. He's going to want, I think, that matchup piece for the big receivers, like the T. Higgins of the world. And to me, that's exactly what Kyrie Jackson is. He's it's a little stiffer because he is so big, but I think he has really solid length. He has good technique in man coverage, and I think he could definitely stick with some of the bigger receivers at the NFL level and compete in a lot of contested catch situations. So I really like this pick. I do think he has some room to grow, and I think DeMeco Ryans could definitely develop him into this defense, which we know he can do based off of his work in San Francisco. And even, Derek Stingley Jr. from last year to this year, it was a huge change. So let's go ahead and move on to their day 3 picks. Excuse me. And kicking it off with Braylon Allen, the jumbo running back from Wisconsin. And I really like this pick because I think it would open up a different facet to this offense that we didn't quite see, and that's just a power run game. Getting this offense going downhill, I would love to see them incorporate some downhill run game into play action and then potentially take shots with Tank Dell, with Nico Collins and Tez Walker for that matter at this point. I just think that would be really interesting. You have Cole Bishop and Tanner Bortolini, 2 just really solid players. At this point in the draft, you're just looking for traits and things that you like in your system specifically. And I think these guys at this point, they're good value. They're solid players that can come in. I honestly would pay a little bit more attention to the position rather than necessarily like the name next to it at this point, simply because, like I said, you're looking more for just talent and traits that you like for your system.
Yeah. I will say, looking at one of those 4th-round picks, potential trade back spot here because they go over 100 picks because they have 2 early day 3 picks, and then they'll be wrapping up day 3. So they might go get a round of golf in between their 2nd and 3rd picks on day 3 because that's going to be a second. But in general, though, I think for the draft as a whole for the Texans, I think all in all pretty good. I mean, there are areas that they can improve on, like that we addressed to, like the defensive interior, maybe a little bit of the secondary, offensive interior as well. I really like both their tackles. But I think that they are going to go and be finding just a lot of explosive skill position players as well. I think that Troy Franklin pick at 23, I think, put him in. So if they decide to go with Troy Franklin, because I know in our mock draft we went with Byron Murphy, but if he is available there, and imagine, like you said, you put him there with Tank Dell and then also Nico Collins on the other side, just a super young receiving room that could be there. All, like, if they're able to manage the finances correctly for the next 7 or 8 years and just develop that rapport with CJ Stroud. And then they can go and get solid defensive pieces. I think they can go and get a Kyrie Jackson, who I think could potentially contend for day 1 starting spot, go across from Derek Stingley Jr. and instantly start improving that defensive secondary. Not even like it was horrible, but just some areas just try and get a little bit better in if they're going to want to make that next step to compete against Baltimore, Kansas City, and Buffalo.
Yeah, and to me, they're one of those teams. They're already, I think, pretty well-rounded, and they could definitely just be in a best player available mentality throughout the whole process. And I will say that's probably, like, to me, I think that is how San Francisco stumbled into. They drafted 7 All-Pros in like 4 years. Was just because they were just taking best player available. A lot of those players really happened to fit their coaching staff and their scheme, and then they went out and traded for Christian McCaffrey. But they found some diamonds in the rough, just taking best player available, and I really like that approach for these well-rounded teams. They don't have specific needs that they really need to go target and fill. So I like what the Texans did in this draft, starting out with Byron Murphy, then Tez Walker, Kyrie Jackson, and then the day 3 picks. I think it fits them really well. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of this Houston Texans 7-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you do differently? And on that, we'll see you guys next time.